won't be able to write too quickly tonight. I did some damage to my humerus bone, but that won't affect my brain, I hope, and my mouth. So, this is a live call-in show, so 524-2415. So the first agenda item is the warrants, so I'd like to start off with Brendan with the general warrants.
Yeah, I have the general warrants dated March 29th, 2018. Our biggest hit, it's for the amount of $31,364.53. Our biggest expenditures were $6,300 to the sewer bond payment for the north end, and we have several $100 equipment repair codes. Then we have about $3,500 for ballots in the town report in there. So I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Read the amount.
I will again. $31,364.53.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, payroll.
Sure,
Payroll warrants.
I've got a couple of payroll warrants. I was going to read them, but Jennifer gave me a tough time, so I'm not going to read them.
Okay.
So, no, the first one I've got is for March 30th through March 19th, 2018, for $26,462.74. The second one I have is March 12th through 23rd at $17,645.35. And that's it.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving those payroll warrants?
Just a minute, I think there was a mistake in the date.
No, there's no mistake in the date. It's March 12th through the 23rd.
23rd?
Yeah.
It's the 12th through the 18th and the 19th through the 25th. The top date is the actual warrant date. That's the day it was paid.
Well, those are the dates on the warrant, so those are the dates that I read.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Those are the
Thank
warrants
you.
you have in front of you, right? Okay, now that that's clarified, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 The motion's carried. Okay, next we have the minutes. Okay, Al, would you like to
Minutes.
the minutes?
Approve the minutes.
So I'll move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Might have one correction for the March 19th minutes.
Yes.
The officials and staff present, should that read to say that Stan was absent for the executive session, that he arrived for the 6:30 meeting?
Yes. So I thought we put that in the minutes.
And you'll find Lee.
Just
Okay, so we just make that an amendment.
I think that amendment.
Yep.
And then further on it says I was present by phone, but not in person.
Right.
yeah, it says
Now,
he called in.
there is one item of concern to me, and I don't know if, Al, if you remember one of your classmates, when you were in grammar school, he had made a very famous quotation. Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Mhm.
And that was by O. Henry. Okay. Now, I just referred to the question about my not being here next year to run for the select board. We don't know that until that happens next year. Okay?
That was what I had heard as a justification
No,
for
I just want to clarify it anyway.
You plan on being
Make it
here.
lighter. Unless I get pilloried out of here.
Right.
So, okay. So having said that, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, minutes are approved. I'd like to adjourn the select board and then open the liquor control board. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Al, you have the license renewals?
I would like to move that we approve the first and second class and outside consumption licenses for the Wooden Nickel, Mill River Brewing, and Bayside Pavilion.
Those are the last three. Those are the last three.
Those should be the last three.
But also, Mr. Montaigne is here from the Wooden Nickel, and he would like to speak to the board about some events.
Hey, John, you want to come up here to
Sure.
make a comment? Sorry, go ahead.
I think if anything's approved, it will have to be included in the outside. part of
Outside
the-
consumption permit?
Yeah, on the outside part of it.
We're looking for
But it will be up to you to hear him and approve. And,
This is the outside piece.
yes, the
Yes,
outside
okay.
piece.
All right,
So
John,
why
have a
don't you
seat.
explain what the outside piece is?
The outside consumption permit allows them to go out on their decks till certain hours. I think it's in there.
You have it there.
Yeah,
If you look at the top part, it says the outside consumption permit for the wooden nickel. And maybe down, maybe 3/4 of the way, it might have some parameters of what they can do outside. Shall I show you?
But there was outside consumption before, by the previous owner, yeah.
Probably these.
Yeah.
That area, right?
Yeah, and we have the last, this
Yeah, it says outside consumption.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what you want to do?
There's one day a month that Green Mountain Harley Davidson out of Essex asked us if we would do a bike night, to where basically everywhere else they do it, they place a snow fence, so that way there's no more people. We're not expecting any more people than what we're permitted for. We'd like to park the bikes in the front, almost like a show and shine. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where they bring the bikes up and then they go through and they do judges of the fanciest bikes, and we've agreed with them that we would, try to do it. And basically, so it would be the outdoor consumption would be, so the bikes would be parked on the inside of the snow fence. You'd still have access to the building all the way around. There'd still be parking for the cars. You're basically utilizing the parking for the bikes where they normally would park anyway.
Well, that's between your building and the road?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so you'd have to go into the building to get out into the snow fenced area.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we would have we wouldn't block any exits, so I can't really cut it off completely because I have to leave those for fire purposes.
Sure.
So we would have somebody standing there to make sure no alcohol got outside of that thing.
And you don't block the fire lane.
No, yeah,
Correct,
exactly,
yeah.
because it would be open.
Yeah.
So, and that's the last Thursday of every month in the summertime.
Yeah.
I think the last one would be October.
Okay.
Sounds reasonable enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, any from the board or
how,
anybody?
how late would these motorcycles be leaving?
It's 6 to, I think 6 to 8 is what they advertise. I mean, some probably would stay a little bit later, but it's on a Thursday, so it doesn't go too late.
I have no problem with the motorcycles other than when they start revving them up and making all the noise at that hour.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't, we close.
That's nothing you can control, I know.
Right, but we close our kitchen down at 9, so we're not a late place, so.
So, are you looking for a motion to approve this? or-
Well, let me just, it says here, under the, as an example, description of the delineated area is as follows. A 14 by 50 half wall on the front side of the building, Monday through Sunday, April 1st through November 1st, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., closing. That's basically what you're asking for is the fence.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking for. My normal permit would be the outdoor consumption.
Yep,
That's what it always has been.
okay.
But I'm asking for one day a month on top of that. I'd like that as well, but one Thursday a month,
An additional day.
additional.
Does that have to be added to this license before we sign it?
Of an expanded area, right?
Yes, and
It
there's
does.
an
It
expansion
will
for
do.
that one day.
Right,
Yeah.
you can do it
Once I get the
yourself.
minutes with the motion, I can include that and send it off to.
Got you, okay, so you'll attach it
It's
to
the
the
local
mo,
approval has to go through you folks first, and then the state will.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Reasonable enough.
Okay, so you made the motion now?
Yes.
So all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
So the 3 licenses are approved and as amended. Okay, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
These are the last liquor licenses I get to sign before I turn 21.
Well, you better not be looking forward to drinking, Brian. You know,
I'm
it's a
not.
beer penalty.
I know where I can go, everywhere in
Too
town
young.
now.
Watch out for your license and your liver.
Veteran advice, I appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Years of experience. Huh? Okay, we have 3 sets of,
Probably
oh
need
yeah, I say, to close the liquor control board and reconvene the select board. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, I see we have 3 different drafts of conflict of business ethics policies. Which one are you asking us to look at, Gary?
Well, the first one is the one we've had, the board has passed for the number of years. And we talked at the last meeting about, and last fall, the select board talked about expanding the conflict of interest policy some. So the second policy is VLCT's template, and the third draft example it's marked is the one that Al is suggesting everybody read from the city.
Yeah, let's see.
So you have draft example 2 and 3 that are they're just drafts.
Has everybody read these?
Yes.
Any opinions on them?
I thought that, the one that we have, if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of a mentality, but if we were to go with draft 2 or 3, I thought draft 2 read a little better. The LCT did a good job with that.
Any comments on that?
Draft 2 has 4 pages. Draft 3 has 8 pages. And the original draft has 2 pages, so it went 2, 4, 8.
Right.
8, I needed a lawyer to interpret it for me. I'm not that smart. And there's no enforcement. Neither one of them can, if a guy wants to violate it, he'll violate it like it has occurred. So my position hasn't changed, so you guys go and do what you think is best.
Al or Bruce?
I have nothing, I can't see anything wrong with draft number 2. I think it's pretty adequate, covers quite a bit. I think draft number 1, our previous one, was just, didn't have enough information in it. But I'm all right with draft number 2, so.
I think draft number 3 is here really for a lot of large organizations of state employees. It's pretty comprehensive.
It is.
Do we have a separate conflict of interest policy for employees?
We have something in our personnel policy
Personnel
about that,
policy.
correct, yeah, this is for
Yeah,
the elected and appointed boards.
Yeah, draft number 2, there are a few things that need some changes in it. If I read correctly in a couple of places. I'm happy with draft 1, but what I would really wonder if we shouldn't try to combine the employee handbook conflict of interest policy and the officials policy, and have one omnibus policy. That would simplify everything.
I would agree with the chair on that. I think that's a better way to go.
So if everyone agrees, I would concur, I would suggest that we leave it to Carrie to bring back a synthesized policy between draft 1 and the employee policy.
So shorter is better, perhaps.
Sure, it's
Because
maybe
I
a
think-
little longer, but it'd be more comprehensive. We're not going back and forth, back and forth. We have one policy that applies to everybody, depending on where you sit.
Right.
Yeah, let's come up with a good one so we're not changing this every year.
Okay, yeah, so let's get that.
Can I have one correction or one question?
Sure.
Bruce said he liked 2 because it was a little bit more had offered more clarification.
Yes.
You said that you had wanted 1. If I was going to compromise, I'd go for 2, joining with the town personnel
Well,
policies.
I could see a new policy. I was really saying synthesize one and our current employee policy. But if you can improve upon it, we're using some of the good points from 2, do that too.
Okay.
So we just do it once and for all.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I'm happy with that.
that's the most important factor, is just get the right one.
Yeah. We just sign it once and be done with it. We'll pass it once,
Correct.
until a new select board decides to tweak it. Okay, Karen?
Yes.
You know what you have to do for the next meeting. Now we'll move on to board appointments. Okay, we have quite a few appointments in front of us. First, we have some appointments for the Development Review Board. We have 2 positions open, and only one current member has asked to be reappointed, that's Bruce Thompson. And is Jeff Dewitt, is he definitely off the planning, off the DRB?
He would like to be.
He would like to be, so
Yes.
and he's moved, basically moved to
Correct,
Florida,
yeah.
so that takes care of that.
Correct.
So that means there's a second position open, and we have one person showing interest in that. That is Ashley Tooth. Ashley, you would like to introduce yourself?
Hi,
Hi.
Ashley too. I've been at St. Albans Town.
Say hi to everybody, get yourself on TV.
Hi.
You're famous.
It's your
Name's
debut.
Sam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ashley too. I've been a town resident for 2 years now.
Okay.
Do you want me to describe why I'm interested?
Sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I have over 10 years of construction experience. I'm a public works engineer for the city of Burlington. And I love seeing the development and community building. And I just thought I could use my experience to provide St. Albans Town residents a voice and my experience to help out.
Super.
Good. You gonna have enough time commuting between Burlington and here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments?
Grateful for her willingness to help.
Certainly glad you applied. Are there any applications that we know of?
Highly
Not
contested.
hearing any, I'd like.
So what do you do in the city of Wilton again?
I'm a public works engineer, so I primarily focus on the paving, the sidewalks, crack sealing, infrastructure plans. Go through the-
Infrastructure, that's something you want to hear about?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe she can help you with your sidewalk plan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, we would thank you for wanting to be a part of the DRB and bringing your experience to us.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I appreciate it. Got a motion to appoint Bruce Thompson and Ashley Tooth
So moved.
to the select board, to the, why not the select board, to the plan, to the development review board for 2-year positions.
So moved.
All those in favor,
3-year
say aye.
position.
Aye.
3-year position.
Two positions for 3 years, okay. Two positions for 3 years.
Yeah.
Correct.
I thought the mind was working. I guess it's not. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's not going over the air?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Do we have any
Yes,
applicants for
Alternates?
alternates?
okay, I'll
No.
let them know. Thank you. They're not seeing our broadcast live.
Okay, do you know what I should be plugging in that I'm not?
Plugged in.
Oh, where does it
That
plug?
one.
They said it was already hitched up.
Sorry,
I didn't-
sorry,
Nope, that one
Ashley.
there, yep,
This one?
yep.
that's all right, you missed your.
We're just gonna move on though, we can't, we're not gonna wait for
You
that.
missed your camera.
Gotta do it again.
You can have an encore later in the meeting where we're going.
Yeah, you did get a, that was good.
Okay, we have, for the planning commission, we have two openings for 3-year terms. And we're going to have one
For 1 year.
for 1 year to complete an unfinished term. Unfortunately, Mr. Hardy is unable to complete his term, so that will be the 1-year term to be filled. And we have two proposals for the 3-year term. One being Grant Henderson, who wishes to be reappointed. And the other is a new person. And I begin to wonder about any hint at nepotism or what's going on here. That is Casey Toof, who I think is somehow related to Ashley.
On certain days.
Okay, Casey, why don't you come up and explain yourself? and Ashley's comments.
They ask you to explain
You don't have
yourself
to.
after they set you up like that, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't have to put the experience that she does in the public sector. But I've lived in St. Albans my entire life. I grew up in the city, but now I live in the town. I've been there for 2 years, over 2 years now. Looking to, we have 2 boys. One's going to be 3 next week, and the other one's 18 months old. We're looking to see how we can, make St. Albans better, what we can do, how can we get back and everything. So that's kind of our motivation, my motivation behind it. So.
Begin to wonder, the two boards meeting on different nights, so that gives you a little more flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions of,
Is your grandfather on the school board?
In St. Albans?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
May have been his brother Ron. Was Ron?
I think it was Ron. It's his brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you do, Casey? What's your,
I work for the St. Albans Messenger. I do sales and marketing for them, mostly in their weekly papers down in Essex and Colchester.
okay, good, thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, for the unexpired term of Dave Hardy, Brendan Deso, whose 3-year term just expired, has volunteered to fill that term.
Yeah.
Are there any other nominations for any of these positions on the planning commission?
Wait, I guess I have a question. So we have a competitive thing for the 3-year race?
No, we
No.
want two persons, two terms, two,
People for the 3-year term?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
Grant.
gotcha,
Yeah,
okay.
Grant
And Casey.
And then Mr. Hardy's term, he's leaving early, so there's 1 year left on that, so Brendan has volunteered to
Oh,
fill
okay.
in for that.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. Yep.
So if I have a motion to make those appointments,
So moved.
okay, no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Again, welcome.
Congratulations.
Here's to merit matrimonial bliss on these municipal discussions. Right. Okay, Regional Planning Commission. We have 2 positions for 1 year. And the current incumbents are Al Vogel and Bob Johnson, each of whom have asked to be reappointed. Do we have any other requests for reappointment? Or for appointment, I should say.
Right.
If not, I would then move that both of these gentlemen be reappointed and ask them to continue to do their best on behalf of the town. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Okay, Al, you're really a glutton for punishment. On the Northwest Regional Planning Commission, we have a Clearwater Advisory Committee, and we have 1 position open for 1 year. And Al Vogel is the incumbent, and he would like to be reappointed. And since we have no other request for appointment, I would move that Al be reappointed. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The Transportation Advisory Committee, 1 position and 1 alternate for 1 year. The terms expiring are for Alan Moshter, who's the regular appointee, and myself as the alternate. I'd be happy if so.
I'll move that nomination.
Were you gonna say you'd be
No,
happy to do
if
it?
somebody
Okay.
would like to step in, I'd be happy to step aside.
Oh, I thought,
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a
I thought
minute.
there was
I thought you were asking for a
motion.
motion.
That comes next.
So you're all with that, huh?
Unless a lot of people hands go up, I'll say get a motion, right? This is payback, Al. Okay. Okay, all in favor of Al's motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Al, I will join. Yeah, Al and I will join you. Now we have 1 more. The Northwest Vermont Solid Waste Management District. Again, 1 position for 1 year. And the incumbent representative is Al Vogel, and he would like to be reappointed. Now, are there any other requests for appointment to the this Waste Management District Committee?
Fair enough.
If not, I move that Al be reappointed. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, the motion carries. Now, currently the town constable position is vacant. Now, that's an elected position that was not filled on town meeting day. Everett Holbert would like to be appointed to this position. Everett, do you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Yep.
Before you say too much, is there any statutory requirement for police training on this?
Yes. I think we should check.
I don't
No,
believe
there
that
is.
there is
There is.
actually.
There is.
If
Yeah.
there is.
There is.
On ours? Oh, there's a little bit of, they don't have to have a full,
No, you
There's
but
some-
there
Yeah.
is some.
Yeah.
there's different types of constables that, I mean, if you're a full-blown constable and you're not under the direction of law enforcement that has jurisdiction in your area, you can have, you
But we
have to
don't-
have a certain number of hours, but if you're not a full-blown constable, you can be under the direction of,
Well, that's not the case here.
We don't have law enforcement.
Right.
I do think there is some training we should probably check.
I got a question.
Yeah, we can make sure they have it.
Bruce has a question.
Al, you're not interested?
No, no, but the constable, without the training, full-time training of the police academy, I don't believe is allowed to be armed.
Right.
Ours has no police authority. Our constable does not have police authority.
Okay.
So yes, there might be some some training required, but it's not the same as if our constable had that authority.
So what's the job?
Largely to serve warrants when we need it. Might help Anna during elections.
Okay.
But
If somebody
it's,
gets unruly.
Health orders.
right, serving things for us if we
Sure.
had a health order or some sort of legal case where we wanted to service.
Help enforcing our ordinances.
Right.
Giving notice under ordinances.
So you like abuse?
I get it every day.
Everett, why don't you give us a little background?
My name is Everett Holbert. I've lived in St. Albans for most of my life, except for a short stint in North Carolina. I'm a plumber in St. Albans. As my father was, I took over his company last year. Looking to wade into the public arena a little bit and see how I can serve St. Albans town.
Great.
Hey, Everett, if there was some training available, to help familiarize yourself with this a little bit better, would you be willing to take some
Yes, I
at
would.
the time? Okay.
Any other questions? Sorry, Dave?
When I was first constable, any training that he goes to, I think he ought to be supplemented with his pay loss, for whatever the normal thing would be, and plus, mileage to attend school.
Well, that goes without saying that we wouldn't ask you to.
I'm not really worried about that too much because any type of
I think
training.
if anybody had to do training, we certainly would be responsible for any
guys
training
generally
costs or
shuffle
mileage or
around.
whatnot.
Correct.
Mileage is another thing, but
Yeah.
I've got people that I can shuffle around.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
The only other comment I would have, I talked to Roger Langevin about Everett. Actually, you're Diamond Street,
Father was on
Yep.
Diamond Street. We grew up there. Yeah.
I know. So, and Roger said, good choice. I said, all right, I'll follow that.
I guess if we put his name down as a reference, that's
Yes.
good. Okay. And say I've known Everett for years. He doesn't admit to knowing me, but that's another story.
As a constable, you probably get to know him a little better.
Okay, if no other comments or questions, I'd like to entertain a motion that Everett be appointed our town constable for a year,
So moved.
and that if he had to take any courses, we will take them.
So moved.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, do you have a list of summonses you want to?
I don't have a list right now, but
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Everett. Guys. Thank you very much.
We'll get contact information.
So the two positions, we're not going to fill, I guess, the second constable and the grand jury.
Correct. Because honestly, the second constable, we don't have enough activity to really warrant searching or needing a second constable. But the grand juror also recently, the LCT in a notice on Friday, told us that that was one of those laws, the antiquated laws that they have more or less eliminated. So as of July 1st, we won't have to do that.
Okay.
We don't have to appoint that position. It's up to, it's your discretion. I should say you don't have to. So at this point, there's no real need for it. And no one came forward either, so I think that they can, it would be a position for a few months at this point.
Now, Al, are you sure you
You don't want that
I'm
one?
positive.
We get a badge with this.
Really?
I don't know.
Now that raises,
If it wasn't for David, you would have had a gun.
Right.
now that raises the question of town agents.
Good deal.
Carrie, town agents?
I'm not sure if we need a town agent either. The grand juror I know was
Yeah,
eliminated.
we can probably hold off on the town
I mean,
agent,
it-
particularly since you shouldn't be holding that slot.
I mean, it gives you a brief description here that we got from
Yeah.
the law, but that town agent has the authority, similar to select board
Yeah,
authority. There's
It
very-
almost is, it's almost like the select board acts, the board acts as an
Yeah.
agent,
Yes,
in effect.
yeah. I don't,
The grand juror, the new law goes into effect July 1st of this year that wipes it out.
correct.
And all state statutes have changed, so,
Wait.
done.
Well, wait now, used to prosecute people, I don't know.
Say again?
As it says here, used to prosecute
Really?
people, well,
I'm not sure it's used like that in recent history, but it has been in the
To
past.
pursue legal action, I suppose. Now we have the Northwest Vermont Rail Trail Council. We have one position, and the current member, Robert Bissett, he would like to be reappointed. Are there any other requests for that?
Or not.
And he's planning on attending your next select board meeting.
Okay?
Just to give you an update, because he didn't provide any this past year, and he's gonna start submitting minutes, so I can provide those to you as well.
Okay. So I move that Robert Bissett be reappointed. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Tree warden, do we still have to have that?
No,
We did not, I mean,
In the
we didn't have
past,
one.
well,
That, does that fall under Alan anyway?
sort of, the DPW director becomes a tree warden in the sense that he has to get permission to, when he's cutting down trees, so he has to make sure that we don't go willy-nilly cutting down everything.
Would it empower him to make
You know,
decisions that he already makes?
I think from what I remember, which is, the burden of being a tree warden is very onerous. There are lots and lots and lots of requirements for that position.
yeah, and people can raise the issue that if Alan were the tree warden, there's a conflict of interest. He wants to cut them down, and he's also
Right?
makes the decision about cutting them down.
They were probably well advised to leave it alone. Now, the last one on the list is the Public Safety Advisory Board.
so usually we have a select board representative, on there, with a few other members. Totally up to you
I'd
how
like to
many.
suggest that we put this off until after we have our planning meeting, just to see how we're thinking, how that's going to impact on this.
That's fine.
If anybody has, unless somebody objects to that.
That, there were, the terms were loose.
Yeah,
So I'm
it's
not
just a
even
matter
sure.
of, I'd rather not appoint than one, rather than not appoint.
Right.
Because as we focus how we're gonna move ahead, this group and any other group is gonna hopefully have much more clear direction. And just leave it at that. So if everyone agrees, we can just defer until the next meeting.
We should do something, and we need to get more public involvement on this. I think this started in 2011 when the police contracted. It is in the contract where there would be a citizens advisory board in the town, and I believe it also went in the 2015 contract that it would be a police advisory group, that if there was some kind of conflict, they would be involved in it. And for what we have now with the three, we need more public citizens.
In general, we need much more public input because we have more and more things coming up. The police contract is due for renewal. We're talking about doing something in the fire department. We're talking about doing something with the parks and town forests. We're doing a lot of infrastructure things. This requires a great deal of input from a lot of people. So we want to get more and more people. So please come and join us. You have that brochure. Have you ever sent out that brochure in public service?
We have
Yeah.
this one, and we have them.
Yeah.
Everyone in the audience has already been appointed.
So, anybody you're listening on TV, please get involved. This is your town. This is our town. So you can affect how we're doing things and positively influence things. There are lots and lots of things coming up, and I think we're going to try to do a lot more in communicating more and more as to what's going on. Okay, having said that.
You're all right with leaving this till after we have our planning session? Good. I'm okay with that. Thank you.
If there's anyone that's interested, they can still send a letter to me.
Absolutely.
This committee before met once a month generally, and not more frequently than that, so it wasn't too arduous. And as a committee, we'd get together and decide when we were going to meet. So it's called the Public Safety Advisory Board. It looks at a lot of different public safety things, not just police or fire, but a bunch of them.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the Public Works Department. Alan Muster. You want to come forward and tell us what we're doing here? We have a couple of things to sign. You can go through network inventory and a budget.
Let's start off. Do you need any more equipment?
Always need equipment.
Not tonight. Not
No.
tonight.
Don't tease me.
The bank is closed.
Basically, it's a financial plan in the bridge and road standards. I just need them signed off by the board so I can get them turned over to V-Trans. The financial plan is just made up of our budget versus the class 2, class 3 roads, what they pay us. And then I juggle the numbers for winterization and summer maintenance.
You're basically certifying that we're spending more than $300 per mile, which we obviously do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, fair. For the general public, our total expenditure for the town highways is $1,566,252, of which $648,000 goes for winter maintenance, $428,000 goes for non-winter maintenance, and then $450,000 for street paving, and we're looking at $40,000 that's coming here for replacing culverts.
That is based off of,
Pardon?
that is based off of a grant that I've already received,
Right.
the 40,000.
So the grant was for 40,000?
We budgeted the job for 40,000, we got 34,000 for a grant,
Okay.
but we have to match, our 10% towards that, so.
The income is up above there.
So Alan, the 450,000 you get, the taxpayers pay for paving. Do you get help from the state of Vermont for any of these roads?
Yeah.
At the top of that list on the financial, you'll see class 2, class 3.
Yes.
They give a certain cent per mile for the year. So those top numbers, I don't have it in front of me, but.
132,000 comes from the state.
So class 2, you get $84,285.64. In the class 3, you're getting $48,873.04.
So with this help we get, that money can only be spent on class 2 and 3 highways that we have?
Yes.
Can't be spent for anything else?
No.
And we
All our
also,
roads are we only have one road in the town that's a class 4, and that's Town Forest Road. So, what money we're getting is being used on the roads we already
And I think
have
you're
in
asking about
town.
grants. Alan has been really good about getting some structures grants and some paving grants in the last 5 years, almost.
Right, because we did extra mileage last year because
Yes.
of the 125,000.
175,000.
It was-
170,
Yes.
that's great.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
for you
I've-
people that don't really know, we do like 53.5 miles. That's what we have in the town for roads, right?
correct. So on an average, we do 4.5 to 5 miles a year paving.
On a 10-year rotation,
On a
basically.
10-year rotation, yep. And last year with the grant money, we went 6.5 miles.
Wow.
So there's 34 towns I fight for getting money. I've already applied for a paving grant and a structure grant this year. It's very doubtful that we'll get it because I just got 175,000 last year for a structure and the year before for paving. But it's always good to have it in there because if a town isn't prepared, they'll allot the money to the town that is. I've already got engineering plans and that for our next structure, so
If
hopefully.
you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, and last year that was Kellogg Road, wasn't it?
Kellogg Road got done last year and I've got a box culvert that needs going on Church Road.
And is that how you got the money to do Prospect Hill too? Is that where that came from?
Prospect and all that was through a Better Back Roads grant, was also the paving grant. Because we got 20,000 from Better Back Roads last year. I got 34,000 this year.
Good.
Oh, when they give out these grants, I know that they're always taking into consideration giving the money to the towns that are gonna use them. And use
Exactly.
it, yeah.
Yeah. Towards the end of last year, we picked up another, I think it was $9,300, and that's what I replaced most of the culverts on Church Road with. That was, the state came in with some extra money, and only thing I had to do is get it signed up for.
Yeah, the culvert on Kellogg Road, the big one you're gonna do, that's pretty costly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done already.
It's done,
Yeah.
it's done, but wasn't that like a couple $100,000?
It came in at 182,000.
It was a big box cover, right?
I got it 63 feet long, 10.5 feet wide,
You did a good job there too.
Did it in 1 week, so the road was only closed for 1 week.
Great. Good work.
So, but these reports, I have to turn into the state, that's why I just need your signatures, and this all applies to make it approval for future grants.
And give me a motion.
Make a motion to sign that?
Okay. All in favor? Indicate by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Alan.
Yep.
If we gave out
So-
gold stars, we'd make a motion to give them.
So that motion was to approve the town road and bridge standards
Yeah.
and network
Network
inventory.
inventory, right.
Somebody's got the original to sign, right?
Yeah, up here, sign.
They're in the yellow, it's in the yellow folder underneath the blue one, somewhere
Underneath?
behind.
We'll sign them towards the end.
Oh, I see. You'll do it all later.
That's it, Bill, yep.
Okay, next, we have,
We can sign it at the end of the meeting rather than disturb everybody.
right, so, now the town manager report.
Thank you. So the first item, the Bays Park Stonehouse update. Alan Mashter and I have been working on getting the numbers from an engineer on this. He notified us late this afternoon they were not gonna be available, so we are gonna talk about that at our next meeting, which is the 16th of April, and he will be here to answer some questions. We're working on getting some approvals for some renovations with the Historical Society, State Preservation and Historic Society, as well as just getting some numbers, like from a welding company to fix the windows, things like that.
So this is the refurbishment of the,
Stone
what do you call it, the bathhouse, or what do
Yes.
you wanna call it?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Now we have a very clearly defined plan, what we wanna do, what's being proposed.
We do have a clear plan that is for the rehab items, but that's what we're going to present to you, because the select board will have to, review that and of course approve them. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it includes how many windows, updates to the bathrooms, electrical, some possible plumbing. So it's pretty comprehensive, actually.
Isn't this something that we'd be looking at when we have our meeting?
We'll look at this next week as well. Yeah,
It is.
absolutely.
And
So-
many of the things on the list, we actually need some estimates for on costs, so you can make a fairly educated estimate on whether you love it or you don't love it at all.
Before we leave that, it's been bothering me. I feel like the quarterback Monday morning after my team was lost. I'm looking at Parks and Recreation, Alan. You've got $12,500 total to spend the remainder of the year. And I'm sure we're going to get more bills on that right from the city recreation. Why we ever allowed ourselves to be 1,000% overspent on one item is beyond me. I just don't understand it. I went back and looked, and I tell you why I don't understand it, because I was sitting home September 6, 2017, watching the show. Alan was sitting here, and he said he got one stone wall done, entrance wall, he'd like to do the other three, and town manager replied that there wasn't much support from the board of getting this done because the money was spent. I phoned in. I said, we got $125,000 from Jeff Davis. Why don't we spend that for the wall? Mr. Cheeseman said, that's right, it wasn't designated for any specific infrastructure property, so let's use it. The board agreed. 2 weeks later, Mr. Vogel, he missed the first meeting where this commitment was made to go out for bids for the remaining 3 walls, approved by the select board. Al come in 2 weeks later and says, I make a motion, we move Jeff Davis's $125,000, which was, part of it was already spent, but Al didn't know, to the Stonehouse Fund. So it got moved to the Stonehouse Fund. Now, when the bill come due from J&L Masonry, who got the bid evidently, we went way over budget, by 1,000% over budget. I don't understand how that was done, why it wasn't caught. It just beyond, we have all kinds of catches. We should catch stuff like that. Why it was not caught, I don't know.
When you see 1,000%, Stan, what was the dollar value of that 1,000%?
That dollar value, you're $49,200 overspent for that one item. And, another item in that dock expense, you're $13,000 overspent. So you don't have money left to hire people for summer. You say you're going to close until July 1st. I don't believe that. So what do you guys want to do? We can fix it now by taking part of that 125 that Al asked for, make an amendment and put it back in the stone wall.
Or you could take it from fund balance.
There's hardly any fund balance in this.
That's not the fund balance, that's just
That's the fund balance for that department.
That's the budget balance. Yeah, the fund balance is what's,
However, whatever you want to say, we sit here, we go item by item by item for budget time, and we sit here and do this to ourselves. I can quarterback good Monday morning. Maybe if I was sitting here at that time, I'd have made the same decision, but I don't know. So what do we want to do to fix it?
That, Anna, a question. That $300,000 that the voters voted to turn into next year's budget, the fund balance from this year, will that still be that amount if we leave
What
this
you voted on was to reduce
taxes?
reduce the amount that I would bill the taxpayers
Right.
using the FY17 up to $300,000. That's what we voted on.
And so your question is, if, after we do that, will we still have fund balance?
Yes.
The answer is yes,
Yes.
we will still have fund balance.
Yes.
So if we leave
How much,
everything intact and we overspend this department, on paper it might look a little bit worse than it is, but we still will be within our budget needs.
We still can afford to use the fund balance, which I think was what many of us were thinking at that time.
Right.
We have more than enough to accommodate both.
Wait a minute, before, I called in,
Yes.
and Bruce Cheeseman said, yes, that fund is available.
Mhm.
And the board told you to go out and get quotes or get bids on it.
Mhm.
So you went out and got bids evidently, and the wall got done. But no one said anything. You know, I come down here and I say, well, the walls are beautiful, they're beautiful, did a great job. And when I start reading and I say, great, how can I be 1,000% over? Because I don't have the luxury of getting all the information that comes out here at the meeting.
What was the actual, again, what was the actual dollar amount?
Budget 5,000, we spent 54.
54,000 or 4,000?
10 times.
54.
Fix those walls?
Among
All four of them. They
I
had,
think,
we
I
couldn't
think
just.
the fundamental issue is we're just not doing a good job controlling our budgets. Spending within what we said we're gonna spend by department. You know, overall it may be okay, but you know,
Right.
you're tightening, you're underspending here and you're overspending there, so we shouldn't be doing that.
Not by 1,000%.
No.
No, Stan, we talked about that last, if I may, Bill?
Pardon me? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've been thinking about this, all weekend, and I've spoken with Carrie and Al about it, and Bill and Stan, and I didn't get a chance to call Bruce, but I've been doing some research into what we could do so that this wouldn't happen again. I think that this could be attributed as a consequence of a derelict of maintenance. We didn't maintain those walls. They were falling apart. You could put your fingers through them in some areas, and it cost a boatload of money that we didn't budget to repair them. So what I would offer for you guys to think about up until our planning session would be to consider whether or not we would like to form a parks committee and charge that committee with creating master plans for the Bay Park and Cohen Park, and they could recommend those plans to the select board, who could then tweak them and then capital plan accordingly, so that if we decide, as a parks committee and then a select board, that we have to repair, say 20 years from now we need to put a coat of pavement on that brand new path we built. That's very nice. We should have budgeted for that, and we'll need to have a plan in order to do that. So I would like to explore the idea of forming a committee with members of the public and maybe a member or two of the select board, and charge them with planning so that we can capital plan for expenditures like this. So this $49,000 over expense on essentially maintenance doesn't happen again. We'll have that money already planned for.
I want to make a suggestion if I can.
All right, Bruce, go ahead.
Okay, and as you all know, I'm in the construction business. Whenever we have a project and we put a dollar amount to a project, we don't just come up with the budget and say, there you go, here's your 40 grand, see you when it's done. We follow the project. We have meetings called estimate to complete meetings. So if it's a 6-month budget, it's a 6-month project, every other week, or like we do twice a month, we sit down and we take a look at the budget, we take a look at the progress, and we take a look at what we have left in the budget to spend. And I think we don't have to, that's part of our job. That's what we are elected for, that's what we're put here for. So I think that is that's much easier, quicker way for us. We've neglected to follow projects through. We throw money at them, we say, okay, there you go, it's got the money, we got an award, we've awarded it, so we're done with it. We basically let it go at that, where our job doesn't stop there. Our job is to follow that project through completion and make sure it does not go over budget. And we spend what's been allocated. So I propose in our meetings that when we start budgets, twice a month, We sit down, we take a look at the projects and do an estimate to complete. Find out what we have left in the budget, how we're doing financially. That's our job.
You have to reimpose the discipline.
It's correct.
Alan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, all due respect, in the past, things have slipped through. There hasn't ever been a maintenance plan. Those walls were built in 1933.
You're right.
We got a good bid. They're redone. They look good. We can have every committee in the world. I think we committee everything too much.
Yeah.
I take it as my personal responsibility. I've already looked into sealants, that those walls will get sealed twice a year for now on, as long as I'm in position. I think it's a maintenance plan, so every time we do something, I have a maintenance plan and procedure to upkeep that stuff. The walking path is should be on a paving plan, same with the roads. You know, when the bathhouse gets done, I'll have a maintenance plan for that. I mean, we can't look back. Things weren't done properly.
That's right.
But moving forward, I take it upon myself to have those maintenance plans. I don't think I need a committee pointing at me saying I need to do
My
that.
interpretation, it's not a question of maintenance. That's your job. Ongoing maintenance, that's your responsibility. The fire department, that's their responsibility. Town hall is Anna's responsibility, things like that. The question is the project. Somebody can say, this is a good idea. Let's do this with the walls. Okay? How much is it going to cost? Do we have the money? Where is the money? And go from there. So we have to make sure everybody knows what we're doing and we have the funds allocated correctly and everybody's aware of it. I'm asking what's happening with the boathouse or the changing house. What exactly are we doing stage one right now to get it up to snuff? We have a plan to go forward with that building. What is the proposed project with that? And we define the numbers for that and manage it as a project.
Oh, I agree.
And it's just a question of a discipline. We've got to remember, we're dealing with taxpayers' money. Even though we're a fairly liquid town, we have a fair amount of cash available. That doesn't mean we can just go spend it anywhere. We have to be very careful.
Definitely.
And the other thing we've got to do too is that when we're thinking of projects, just like right now, we're thinking about building a new public works department, okay? While we're thinking about building that, and what it's going to cost us to build it, we should be mindful of what it's going to cost us to maintain it, okay? There's a certain percentage, in other words, the way preventive maintenance goes, there's a certain percentage of the cost, replacement cost of that building that should be figured into PM's, preventive maintenance cost.
It's part of your annual budgeting.
And that's part of our annual budgeting. But those costs have to be, we can't just figure that we're going to put up a $2 million bill and it's over with. No.
Don't
We got to
even
maintain
mention
that.
that number.
Well, hypothetically, but we got to maintain that building after we build it. And that's one thing that this town has not been doing a good job of, is PMs and preventive maintenance. That's how you get longevity out of your investments.
Okay.
As a correction to my committee idea, I don't want to make like a 5-person committee to micromanage you. I think you do a fantastic job.
I think we
Absolutely.
Okay.
sure.
I'd like a group of people to sit down and say, this is our park, this is what it looks like now, this is what we could see as a future need, this is what we'd like it to look like in 10 or 20 years.
Yeah,
Prioritize those adjustments and then capital plan
They
accordingly.
make proposals to the select board and whomever, then let the select board decide, then you go from there.
Right.
We have to be careful. We've had some park committees in the past. They happened to see a budget, they happened to see the money was there, and then it was gone. They said, this is our money. No, time out, it's not your money.
No.
So we have a little history with this, so
That's why
we're
I
not going to commit those sins again.
I still believe we as selectmen follow the project through on an
Absolutely.
estimate to complete basis.
It's going to be an interesting planning meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So before we leave, I haven't heard where the money's coming from.
I don't know.
We're going to borrow it from you, Stan.
No.
You're more than welcome. So
I think
can we find out where
we
it's
can
coming
work
from?
together
I'm
and move
just,
it from the stone house. Because remember, when Stanley did call in, he quoted a price for $125,000, and then I spoke with you about it.
Yep.
It was actually $130,000.
Exactly.
That's why we brought it back to the board for an amendment.
I mean, it's your pleasure where you want it to come from. I think that we have and should have enough money at the end of the year in our general fund to cover that expense. It still had to go through the budget, so it looked so people knew where it was coming from or where the money was expensed.
It's gonna have to be accounted for through the budget, no question. Through the
Oh,
normal
absolutely,
reporting, yes.
but at the end of the year, we returned most of the money to the taxpayers that we haven't spent, you know, our
Yeah.
budget versus,
Sure.
what we
But
actually spend is.
I don't think, my own reaction is we shouldn't just say, let's charge it to the general fund if we have excess.
Right.
If we're not
If you would-
spending. I think we should
That's fine.
charge it as best we can to the fund where it was,
Designate.
for which it was incurred.
That's fine,
It's,
and we can do that.
No, that's right.
It won't change that budget line, it'll still be over, but
It won't change the budget line, it will appear on the revenue
Oh,
side.
yeah, it'll change your reserves, it'll change the reserve, the fund balances,
Right,
but it will charge the right fund balance.
it
Correct.
can, yep. If that's your preference, we can do that.
Where was it coming from?
Wherever,
It's your choice, we can
Well,
take
You're
it.
gonna sit
What are
down and
the
look
options?
at the buckets
Well,
and
we
see
can
what-
wait until the end of the year.
no, right now, what are the options with fund balances? Do we have a Stonehouse fund balance, do you have a?
You have a Stonehouse fund balance of 125,000, 130,000, because there's interest, and
Take it from there and be done with it.
Oh, that's a quick one, see, we're making a snap decision again.
Yeah, I don't know if I
What are
necessarily,
the other ones?
I
well,
don't,
the other choice is we
Yeah.
sometimes wait until the end of the year to see if we have enough revenues, to just absorb that cost. We have capital projects reserved of over 100,000 as well. So there are at least 2 or 3 different places
Well,
we
you
can
know,
take it from.
in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I'd rather wait to the end of the year and see what we have for money.
I agree with
Because if
that.
we start taking money out of this fund and that fund at the end of the year, here we go again, getting back to what I talked about, you know, with, kind of an estimate to complete type situation. I'd rather wait to the end of the year and see what we have for money.
Right, Chair, I would agree with Bruce, mainly because Carrie said that next week, we're going to get some estimates on the cost of fixing the stone house.
Right.
So it just seems to me we're throwing money here to there.
Exactly, and
And
we
not
don't
waiting.
know what could possibly come up in
For
crisis
example,
30 days.
wait a minute, time out.
Hold on. We have a few.
On the 12th, Bill, we're sitting down and going through, we're gonna discuss if we
Yeah.
even don't do the stone house. So let's not make a decision now about the stone house funding.
I'm not making a decision about the stone house. All I'm saying is, I don't think we should be arbitrarily pulling money out of different pockets. We should wait to the end of the year
Okay.
to see what we have for good, solid balance.
Okay.
Well, right now, for example, there's almost $500,000 in Public Works Department reserves and capital accounts.
All right, I've had my piece,
We're
I'm
only in the
done.
month of March though, Bill.
You know,
We got a year to go.
We only
No,
have a
we
few
have
months.
2 months
No,
until
July.
Excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
thinking calendar.
But we also have a fire department reserve account of $600,000, so we're not gonna touch that one. So the point is, there are only a few places available where we can do it.
I'm hungry.
So,
Yeah, this should be in this in
Yeah.
your, okay?
yeah,
I'd like to wait till the end of the year to see what our fund balance looks like.
We'll decide, we'll take a look at it
We talked
more
about it.
closely next week.
yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
So see, jumping from point to somewhere gets a discussion going.
It sure does.
Okay?
It sure does.
On that happy note,
You just got to bring the blood pressure down a little bit.
oh, mine's good. I took a pill before I got here.
Did you?
There's a street crime unit, Bill.
What reserve account did that come out of again?
Okay,
So that, we're done with that item?
we're done it for the moment. We're not done with it, just temporarily.
Just for now, I think for
Temporarily.
now.
Open.
The first of 7 out of your report, yes, we're done with that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Bronson Road, that's our next,
So the next item, and Becky is here to answer questions if you have any. This has been going on for quite some time. I know we sent you some backup information
Yes.
on that.
Becky, you want to come up front and center?
She provided the summary, which
I knew Constable to listen carefully to this one.
summary dated 3/23, kind of went over briefly what she's gone through to try to work with this applicant. And as a follow-up, I did actually reach this individual by phone on Friday in the middle of the afternoon or early afternoon. Stated he had every intention of coming in this week to pay for the required permits and is expected by Wednesday. I say that, however, a little skeptical because Becky has been promised similar things and the deadline's come and gone. So we're trying to avoid, if you notice the sketch, there's a pretty large 2-story building that was put on the addition. It's colored. Becky kind of showed you the items that were included in the lawsuit that we got a judgment on.
So those the items in yellow on this big one?
Yes. Yes. Those items were included in the lawsuit. There was no appeal. That's expired. This individual needs to correct this violation or we're going to take that down.
Okay, so now, wow, there are two courses of action here, aren't there? One is he can get the permits.
If he gets the permits, then yes, he can have the apartment. It meets all the setback requirements, it meets everything. And I have been trying to work with him to do that. I filled out all of the applications for him, provided all of the supporting documentation he needed to be able to get these permits.
And then he didn't come in for 2 months.
He has, I've given him a deadline to come in.
So if
To
he
pay
doesn't
for
get the
those?
permit, the alternative is we can go in and remove the structures.
We have a court order that says that we can remove this structure.
Becky, how long has this been going on? How long have you been working with this individual?
I started working with
2016.
in June of 2016.
We went to court on it on April 26, 2017 when you filed the complaint. And it looks like, according to the judgment order, my first question is, did he pay the $1,400?
He has not paid any of the fines, the permit fees, the penalties, or the recording fees.
What he did submit an application
No,
for,
no.
No, she filled it out. and
Oh,
sent it.
you filled it out, he didn't sign it.
And then he also
Wow.
had a condition that he had to either remove
I
or
read
get-
the rest of it, yeah.
He's-
So
The
that's
deadline
our
was November 1st, 2017, which is obviously blown out of the water.
For the court-ordered part of it, there are two pieces to this.
Okay.
He did allow me to go on site and do an inspection, because he also requested a certificate of compliance. He mentioned to me that he would like to get the certificate of compliance. In order to do that, I needed to inspect the property and found other items on the property that had not been permitted, which are not a part of this lawsuit, but you'll see them in green on your sheet.
Oh, those are the green ones, okay.
Yes, they are.
Though that is part of the permitting that I filled out for him to sign and return to us with a check.
Now, this apartment is unpermitted accessory. Is this rented to a tenant, do you know?
It has been rented to a few tenants that I know of.
Currently?
Currently, I'm not sure. They were moving out when I went in to do the inspection.
I'm just wondering if that's a violation. Is there a health code violation somewhere in there that you don't have a COC so you can't rent it?
I'm not aware of that right now.
You are not supposed to occupy a building without a COC.
Right. Now, what's the enforcement on that? I mean,
I'm
if you
doing-
hurt the guy's
that's what I'm
revenue, we
doing.
might
That's what she's doing
That's what
right
she's
now.
That's what I'm
doing
doing now.
That's what we're trying to do here.
Okay, fair enough.
Doing. So if he doesn't comply, he would either option A or B,
Mhm.
you would then go in, take action to take those structures down.
I would take action, or I'm requesting that you make a decision to take action. This will cost the town money to do. And then I will, if he does not come in by Wednesday, I will also be sending a new notice of violation for the other unpermitted structures that he has on the lot, and we will be beginning over again. Those were structures we did not know about.
For the new violation.
This is just
The new
gonna,
violation.
this is kind of snowballing a little bit, huh?
It is, and it can be
Yeah.
easily fixed, and it could have easily been fixed.
Well, what I can't understand is, the cost of bringing everything to code, it is
Total
kind of
cost
minimal
is minimal.
compared to what he's gonna go through if we go in and take his structures down. So I think I'd kind of like to know, are we sure there's not something hidden that we don't know about that is preventing him from coming in here? I mean, I want to make sure we do everything
I've
before
spoken
we...
to him a few times, that he has come into my office and spoken to me and told me that he was coming in. He did come in and ask me, how much do I owe you? But I didn't have any idea what he owed until I was able to go on the property and see what it was that he constructed. We didn't even have measurements.
I just want to make sure before we take measures like this, because that's not what we're known for
No.
in this town.
Well, we've
I
done it
think I've
before.
bent
We
over
want
backwards
to,
to
I want
help
to make
him
sure
on it.
we've done everything humanly possible to before we take action like
We've
this?
done it before,
Yeah,
yes.
I would say at the end of the day, I mean, I put in
I
an
think-
accessory dwelling and rented it last year. I came
Okay.
in, I got a permit, I
but
warned it.
this
it
is
was
this
over.
one though, Brendan, so.
Anyway,
I
yeah, I
believe
think
there's,
the issue is, you know,
You believe you've done everything?
I believe that I have bent over backwards,
Okay.
actually.
All right.
I mean,
do
you know,
this.
he's had his chances to speak his case in
It's
court,
just,
and we have a final definitive judgment by the court,
Yes.
and that doesn't come lightly.
Well, I mean, our last effort was, I talked to Becky about this, that's why I called him on Friday. I
Yeah.
said, you don't seriously want us to take down your building, it's gonna cost more money, because if we take down the building and have to have someone oversee it, he's gonna ultimately have to pay for
We'll
that.
go for
And
costs.
we don't wanna do that either, so,
well,
that's
Becky's,
why we gave him the very last deadline. There's no grace period. If we don't see him by Wednesday with permits in hand and money, then we're gonna have to proceed to take stuff down.
Yeah.
well, that's
Do we need
really,
to take any
really,
action?
really too bad.
You don't need
It
to at
is,
this
and
point,
it is
but
too bad, but that's why
Okay.
I've tried since June of, what was it, 2016 to help him to come into compliance.
But on the other hand too, we have ordinances in this town and rules that have to be abided by.
Yes.
And I think if we have an ordinance, if we're gonna take the time to make the ordinances, make the rules, we also gotta be
We
willing to back them.
We have to enforce these
Have
things.
to enforce these.
Yeah.
So,
It's unfortunate. I mean, there's some people who are going to be recalcitrant, and they're going to pay the price, unfortunately. We don't want to do these things.
we do not.
but I
As I say,
certainly,
you know, you filled out the application, all he has to do is put his X on it, and we're done.
I mean, I really wish zoning administrators in other towns would fill out my applications when I put new houses up.
It's not
Above
normal.
and beyond.
We don't normally do that.
Above and beyond in this case. I mean, what
Correct.
else can you do?
That's correct.
So may I suggest, because of public perception and thinking that we might be too arbitrary, that the day before that this goes into effect, the Wednesday, Tuesday, we have several bulldozers sitting outside his property. So it's clear and distinct to him, we're dead serious, but he's got the opportunity to come in and pay quickly. Old
I
backhoes.
don't know if I wanna be sitting on the front lawn.
No.
You don't have to be sitting on the road.
But it certainly
We don't
wouldn't,
have a bulldozer.
Well, I think, you know,
Excavator.
I think
An excavator,
I get the impression that we're supportive of Becky
Yes.
following through
Absolutely.
with what has to be
Yeah.
done.
Correct.
All
You
right.
can't do any more than what you
That's
have.
it.
We can call someone tomorrow, though, to investigate how soon they can work. They
But
can do this for us,
can
should
I-
we not see
can I
anything.
just say something? If Becky is gonna enforce something like this, and she's gonna go over to talk to this guy again, let's not let Becky go over there by herself.
Yeah.
Oh, we've already started doing that,
Yeah.
So let's,
actually.
Everett will join.
let's,
Good job.
let's,
We gotta get sworn in first.
just be
though,
careful.
okay?
Welcome aboard.
And, you know, if necessary, get the
I
sheriff and
don't-
all that. Yeah.
Go by
Yeah.
myself.
Just be careful.
So, you know,
It's a different world we live in.
you know, hopefully Bob's watching, so we know, Bob, get ready.
Taking notes, Bob?
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
so, all right.
Thank you, Becky.
Thanks,
All right,
Becky.
Becky, thank you.
The next one should be fairly easy and straightforward. Our Green Up Day is coming up. Many of us want it sooner than others. Brad Jenkins is a local Boy Scout leader. He's asking for some select board support.
He came to us last year.
He did.
Did he get his merit badge? He was after a merit badge, wasn't he? Did he?
Brad Jenkins?
There was students.
Oh, there might
Boy
have been.
Scout, right.
There was a Boy Scout.
There was a
yeah.
couple of them,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if any select board members would be interested in working with Brad.
I'll go for as much as I can. Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, give him my name too.
I don't see anyone else fighting you guys for it, so I will do
What
that.
day is
I'm
Green
not
Up Day?
gonna fight Brendan if you want, only needs one guy.
Hey,
No, please. We can hold the bags
Okay.
together.
You got two names?
Oh, we got trucks, right? We can-
we do. We will tell him. That's awesome. He did a really good job organizing the efforts here in St. Albans City and town, so. And
The
Alan
guys
helped.
helped last year too.
Our DPW crew and Alan helped a lot as well. Yep.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Perfect.
Go and roll and drive one of your trucks.
Me too, shotgun.
All right, there we go.
All right, I think we just skipped the next one, so we're gonna look at the project list next week.
Yes, that was just copying you on it, so I sent you, you should have the penned list, which has a bunch of different things on it, and the capital project list. I'm also gonna send everyone on the select board a copy of, our capital program, which was approved in 2015, and the current policy about that. So we're having a planning session, a select board planning session on Thursday, April 12th, if anyone's interested. The next item here, and that's why Bill Hinman is here, he's currently our assessor. Select board member has asked if we should take the next step and actually formalize our assessing department to make it an appointed position versus an elected position. Just for the public, we right now have, we have 3 openings for listers. 2 of them are filled right now. They operate as a governing board, more or less a supervisory board for our assessing department. And Bill has been hired to act as our assessor and works with an assistant to the assessor, Bob Ware. They are doing the bulk of the work in town at our listing department.
So just let me give you a quick history that I may have or may not have spoken about before. There's been a real shortage of listers across the state, and so the state of Vermont passed a law several years ago allowing the town to vote and get rid of the listers as a whole and appoint an assessor. Previous to that, there was a chapter in elections law, whereas if there weren't enough listers, you have to have a quorum, which is 2, then the town at assessing time could appoint an assessor to sign the ground list. That got them by the requirements to always have it, because if you don't have a final ground list, you can't set tax rates. So that allowed that to happen. In Georgia, I came on when Carrie, was there, and they didn't have any listers, and so I was appointed year to year until 2 years ago, I believe it was, where they voted to have me become the assessor. Same thing happened in Weybridge. On the flip side, I am the assessor of the town of Williston, and we have a very active board of listers, and they act very much like a select board. When I have an issue in regards to the statutory exempt property, for instance, I get the information together, and then I give it to the board to make a decision as to whether or not they put it on the exempt rolls. Review some of my work on bigger projects, if you will, and then keep them up to date with what's going on in town. So I meet typically with them once every couple months. I don't know where the town is going. I know I've sat through and heard vacancies, and it's difficult to find the positions to fill for planning and everything else. And unfortunately, listers are not a very popular position historically. And so this may come without the select board deciding to do it, because if one of our listers decides to retire and we can't fill the position, then I, in essence, am going to be the assessor through the chapter within the elections law, because you're going to have to appoint somebody. Yeah, so that's kind of the history on it. So, it's nothing that has to be acted on immediately, but it's probably coming down the pike at some point in time.
And it doesn't require charter change right now,
No.
but in fact can be done with a townwide vote, that change.
So we should be looking at November possibly?
Yep.
Could be November, it could be March.
When we first looked at this question of lister assessor, it seemed to me that it required a charter change at that time, but things have changed since then.
That's correct, that's right.
And it certainly makes sense if we don't have enough listers, we're going to have to appoint an assessor anyway.
Right.
I think we
So
already
we can-
voted on it, didn't we, a couple of years ago?
Pardon
We
me?
voted on something to do with appointing before you got here. I think we did. I'd have to
recall
look at
that.
the,
I don't think we have it in the charter.
not in the charter.
We don't have
I
it
think
in
we
charter.
voted on it
Well, if we did, then we didn't
for
want to take
hiring
any
a,
action.
for
But if we didn't
hiring
vote
a-
on it, we should
for hiring an
look at it.
assessor.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
a couple,
But
For
we may-
hiring assessors, I don't know if it was to abolish the
Yeah,
listers.
it wasn't. It wasn't.
So that's what we would need to do essentially?
Effectively, yeah. But, and this is really important if the public is listening, the Board of Listers, as it works for me in Williston, involves not a lot of work, but it also gets people involved to a certain extent. So if you're interested in being a lister, it's not something that you're going to have to work 10 hours a month on, like you might with a planning commission or design review committee. It is a couple hours, a couple times a month, and then maybe an 8-hour day in the spring for grievances.
Just seeing how people are listening, could you briefly explain what they do?
Sure. So I'm responsible, the lister's office is responsible for maintaining the grand list, which means we go out and inspect properties year to year for permits, new houses, changes, and then keep track of the market with respect to how our values are compared to what the assessments are. And then once every 10 to 20 years, we do a reappraisal as needed. The maintenance of the grand list from an administrative point of view, which we take care of in the office, is compiling permits, taking care of transfers, current use, which is a program typically for agricultural land, which people pay less taxes, so we manage that with the state. Homestead exemptions we do through the state every year. Everybody has to file that with their taxes. So it's a very complex amount of things that go into it, but ultimately it's very simple, and that is we assess property for what it's worth. And that is the job of the lister, is to take a look and me to explain to them what I'm doing and then ask questions.
Is there any qualifications that we should be looking for? Anybody that's interested?
Well, certainly history in real estate obviously is helpful. But anybody that has a good mind, is analytical, is really eligible to be a lister. We have, if someone's interested and wants to really find out about it, if they're voted in, they have new lister training through the state, which is a 2-day program, and they can go and find out all the ins and outs of listings so that they're more informed. But before I started working here officially, I sat down with AJ for probably 4 hours and was able to pretty much go through what we do as an office, and there are handbooks that the people could read if they wanted to.
And again, we should mention, like Dave mentioned earlier, if somebody was interested, did want to take that training, the town would be willing to pick the expenses up for the 2 days.
Of course, yeah.
Chair, the bill in Colchester, the Board of Listers is basically an appeal board. It doesn't even get into the fine aspects of determining an evaluation as a lister would, or as you do as assessor. But the Board of Listers then hears appeals of the assessor's assessment, and if that's not satisfactory, then it comes to the Board of Civil Authority.
Right. So they're a grievance board initially.
Sure.
Yes.
And that's and if you're a lister, you have to appear for grievances. That's a requirement. Everything else I can pretty much do just with the signature of the listers. But when we do have grievances, the listers do have to appear and hear the listers and the appeal in person. But most importantly is that it's a job that, or a position where it helps the town still feel like a community. In other words, I'm a professional assessor, so you're getting away from that community involvement farther and farther as we've seen as things evolve. And in Williston, again, I don't want to hammer on Williston, but we have a meeting. We talk about important things. We talk about the weather, but we also, really discuss and the listers ask questions. So they say, well, what about this property that I heard sold down the road? Is that one comparable to this, or something along that line? Or I was talking to such and such in the grocery store, and they asked me a question. Can you answer it so I can get back to them? That's the kind of stuff that really helps the community stay together, and and that's why I like having listers in Williston. I don't want to make all the decisions, frankly. I will if I have to, but I don't.
We just haven't had a lot of interest here, and that's why Stan brought it up. We have we have a vacancy right now, and no one has asked about it to date.
And that could be appointed
Yes.
if somebody wants.
To the next term. To the next election.
Well, you're right, though. It doesn't sound like it does take up a lot of time.
No.
If somebody was, wanted to donate a couple of hours, that would be...
It literally is 2 hours, and Williston's 2 hours every 2 months, plus an 8-hour day, in the middle of June when we have our grievance hearings. Yeah, but that's about it.
Stipend, is it yearly stipend for it?
We have meetings, like the Planning Commission, DRB, we have a budget for those meetings for them to meet about once a month.
The ones we have now are part-time employees.
One is.
One is, okay. So we shift away from that, we'd have these stipends for meetings.
Okay.
Stan, have a question?
Yeah, Bill, Friday when I was here, the I thought he was an assessor. Was he a guy in here working with you?
Sure. So what happened was Bob Ware had medical leave.
Yes.
He had some surgery.
Let me
medical-
just finish the
Yeah, sure.
question. So, you can take an assessor from another area and bring him in here and perform that assignment.
Yeah, I mean, this was an unusual circumstance.
Right.
But yeah, I can, in Georgia, I'm a contractor. And so I provide my assessor services, and Bob, who works for me down there and has for years, is the assistant, but I can have anybody do it. It just happens to be Bob.
Right. But you couldn't take a lister from Georgia
No.
to bring him into St. Albans?
No, they have to be a resident.
So you have that flexibility.
Oh, you have to be a resident, okay.
To be a lister.
Yes.
Lister,
You
okay.
have the flexibility as an assessor or somebody to do that.
Yeah. And there's many companies that do what I do. I'm not the only one.
Now, to be an assessor, you require some qualification?
There's actually really not a lot of qualifications statewide for assessment work. Like, I can tell you, like the appointed assessor Randy Deans and Todd LeBlanc, who's South Burlington, they've been appraisers for quite some time, but they don't actually hold appraisal licenses like I do. So it's the state's working on that, but there really isn't too many restrictions. But there is a level of qualifications that you need. I've been doing this for 30 years, so that's kind of where the rubber meets the road.
Before we even bring it up to a vote, Bill, I had a question. It's probably more in your area, Kerry. Right now, we have two listers. Richard Allard, who doesn't really care. He doesn't. He'll come in to sign the grand list.
Right.
But he's really not interested. And we got Tad, who works part-time, 20 hours, whatever the hours are.
Correct.
So if we were going to vote on something, I'd like to feel comfortable that Tad still has a job until he wants to retire or until he can't perform or whatever. Is that possible?
Well, we've actually,
He's elected.
well, we've separated those two positions, so he gets paid just like Mr. Allard does for his lister duties. And
Yep.
as the daily day-to-day activities, we actually have a different job description for those services working under the direction of Bill.
So if we approve to go to the voters, it could be Tad would be out of a job?
He would be out of the lister board job.
Right, but would he have a job like he's currently doing?
That position would still be open, yes, because even in our budget, we have a salary line for where we pay Bill, where we pay all the other people that work in the assessing department, and we have a separate budget line that says lister board.
So the bottom line is he'd be able to keep his 20-hour-a-week job.
Yes.
At this point in time, I have no intent to make a recommendation that we change any of the office staff. If that's the answer to your question. Carrie and I have had these conversations ongoing, and I don't see any need to change the way the office procedures are going right now. But I'm not sure what the future holds. A year,
Well, no
6
one
months,
is.
2 years, 3 years from now. Yeah, we can't
Okay.
look in that glass.
I did talk to him, and I told him this was coming up.
Sure.
And I talked to Mr. Allard, and I told Tad that, try everything to make sure he had a job.
Sure.
And I said, I'll bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah.
And if I felt comfortable, then I would vote to probably do away with the listers, if we bring it up for a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for sticking around tonight.
No problem.
So how do you want to proceed with that? Do you want more information? Do you want me to bring it up in a month?
Bring it up next week. In a month, next week, yeah.
Next meeting? Is that what we
Next
said?
week.
Priority
Next week.
planning
Next
session.
week, okay.
Okay, now you want us to look at the animal control ordinance?
Yes. And David,
One change to that I can see. A couple of changes.
there was a couple changes. One of them was required because now the animals are, we had a reference in the animal control ordinance that dogs weren't allowed in the parks, that now we allow dogs in. So we wanted to eliminate that conflict. And the other issue was as we looked at it, and I talked to David about it, we hadn't really looked at the vicious dog thing in a little bit, and I know that a recent neighboring town has had that issue, so we talked to them in VLCT about the fact that they asked them if there was any changes, and they said yes, in fact there was. So on page 2 of the ordinance, we changed the definition of vicious dog to read potentially vicious dog, and then the definition you see on page 2 in red is taken from the VLCT guidelines, and that largely comes from state law. So what the gist of that is, although it's written in legalese, is it eliminated the requirement for the town to have one of those hearings if a dog attacked another dog or, say, killed their neighbor's chicken. We used to have hearings, very timely hearings on something like that, and then assess damage and cost. We are no longer in the middle on that. It's a civil issue. The neighbors can still discuss it, but we don't have to have that hearing any longer, which is, I think, a good call. It still is going to affect us if a dog attacks a human, and we're still going to be required to do all the same things, but this is more clear and it's, more importantly, legal. And those were the main changes there on page 2. And then you'll see on page 3 that we eliminated the nuisance one.
We have to talk, right?
I have a question. Last year sometime, you were having a lot of problems with animals breaking out, cows in particular, I think was the issue, and crossing the road and creating hazards. Where are they covered under our ordinances or laws?
There's nothing covered under the animal control laws. At one time, we were going to put something in here in reference to livestock at large.
It's still under it's in there under domestic animal.
Under domestic animal?
Mm-hmm. We did keep that part. It says rabbits, cattle, sheep, goats, equine, fallow deer, red deer, reindeer. I don't know. There's a lot of different animals in there. So, because David did have a problem with them, we don't want to eliminate that.
Okay.
But as far as the vicious dog complaint, under state statute, the town, if a person is bitten by a dog, can request a vicious dog hearing under state statute. The reason we changed it in the animal control ordinance is because of the issue we had in Georgia, which I was involved in, where a dog was attacked on a person's porch and the dog was killed. And the only thing I could do was issue tickets for no license tag to the owner of the dog that killed the dog, in front of the guy that was handicapped. So that's one of the reasons I asked Carrie to look into that and have VLCT come up with an article. I did talk to Carrie about Section 3 is definitions under enforcement officer. As you can see, we have quite a few people that are able to issue citations under our animal control ordinance. Most of the time it's either going to be myself or it's going to be Carrie Lewis, but it could be the health officer, the deputy health officer, the St. Albans Constable, the Vermont State Police, the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, the St. Albans police officers, or any individual designated to enforcement by the Selectboard. But most of the time it's Carrie Lewis or myself, and it could be the constable, if we weren't available.
Gotcha.
Looks like you got plenty of coverage.
I'm going to need a bigger budget next year.
You have to get more fine income.
Yeah. We did have a problem this a couple months ago in reference to 2 city dogs that came down into town and destroyed 4 chickens. And the gentleman owned the dogs admitted that were his dogs. I took pictures of them, and the guy ended up paying $80 for the chickens, and I gave him, a city resident, a ticket for the dogs not being licensed. Even though they were from the city, they came in the town and they destroyed the chickens.
Must have been the best layers we had, huh?
Question,
Okay.
while we have this open.
Sure, go ahead.
Nuisance 2, item 1.
Yep,
We're talking about a dog that disturbs the quiet. I don't know, habitual barking or howling, I don't know, an hour might be a little long. Could we cut that in half? Because I know with my dog, my little guy, when he hears another dog barking from a neighboring property, his reaction is to immediately respond. So, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, before I give a ticket for that particular statute, I go talk with the neighbors. By the way, I dared hear a dog bark the other night when I was trying to sleep, but I couldn't tell if it was yours or anybody
Wouldn't
else.
have been mine, you wouldn't have heard him down there. Not that big, it just annoys me, because I don't know if my neighbors
But,
do.
you know, common sense goes into that one in reference to taking in, dog barking. I would talk to the neighbors and get a feeling from the neighbors if around that area, David McLean's dog was a nuisance before I would issue a ticket.
I think that's our preference, so to answer your question directly, you probably could change it.
An hour is okay. By the time somebody gets annoyed enough to call you, a fair amount of time has passed by, so.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
Well, if it's a 15-minute clip every day,
well, who knows?
really-
No, this is continuous, isn't it?
You don't want that
Yeah.
necessarily.
I'd leave it alone.
Alright.
Sleep with your dog.
Town needs more chickens.
Free-range
One
chickens.
question, does this animal control ordinance supersede the town park ordinance? So we've done away with the animals, we allow animals in the park. Our 90 days, 60 days.
Oh,
is-
that one's already passed and in
Right.
force.
But does this one override it? Now, we gotta wait another 60 days or no?
This one also has to go through the same ordinance approval process, yes.
Yeah.
Because the other
But
one
we're not
comes to the
gonna,
park.
we're not likely to enforce that nuisance one.
Don't enforce it if you get called.
Right now, we got dogs with
They're all
people
over
walking
the
their
place.
dogs in the park now.
But what, I'm sorry, but what David really would like to say is, please
Educate.
pick up after your dogs. We're having an issue with that already, and
Do we have
people
signs yet down there? Did we buy
can't put
signs?
signs up in the middle of the winter. So we have bought signs and some just baggies in the dispensers, but you can't put them up yet.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we
It's
do
spring, it's not winter.
tell the
Well-
ground that. Yeah, I would like
We have a
it.
frost line somewhere.
So we will need a motion to approve it if it's acceptable to you, and then we have to do the waiting period.
There are no objections. I ask a motion to approve the revised animal control ordinance.
So moved, if you asking for that.
Yep, any other questions or comments? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Just make the select board aware, so far, as of today's the deadline when people are supposed to license their dogs, we have around 460 dogs licensed. But I got a list of all the people that didn't license their dogs, so if anybody on the select board hasn't licensed their dog,
I have a low number this year, so it's very early.
but I'm gonna start calling all the people that didn't license their dogs and give them a warning, say, look, you forgot to get your dog licensed. Therefore, please come in and get a license with your reader certificate.
Don't have one, Dave.
And honestly, just this last quick thing, if you haven't licensed your dog, one of the reasons we do it for a public health thing, right? You gotta get your dogs vaccinated, but also it helps us locate the owners when the dogs get loose. Every pet owner says, my dog's not necessarily a runner, but, David uses Facebook. We have a lot of luck with Facebook connecting owners with their pets, but if you haven't licensed your animal, it makes it a lot harder. They obviously can't speak for you, so.
Yeah, I had one guy holler at me over the phone, he kept on swearing at me. And I told him, I says, hey, he don't live too far from Brendan. And it was a dog that had no license tag, and I picked him up and I brought him to the kennel. And at that time, I was leaving town for 4 hours. So I left a note with the police department saying I'd be available after 4 hours. And when I got home, I had 4 different phone calls from this gentleman, and he was screaming and hollering at me. And I said, look, we can either talk sensible or, this conversation is gonna end. And I told him, I said, if you had a dog license tag on your dog, it'd have been easier just to drive out to the bottom of Lower Newton Road and give you your dog. But because you didn't have a license tag, I'm also gonna give you a ticket.
And stop calling me.
Well, it costs money too, so. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
So the last item under town manager report is the street addressing ordinance. Otherwise, we also refer to it as the E911 ordinance. We realized in a recent incident when we're having difficulty encouraging a commercial landowner to number their buildings, that we didn't have an enforcement section in there. This one's pretty straightforward, comes right from state law, the one that's on page 3 of the street addressing ordinance. It's unlikely we're gonna need this very often, but we are asking to include an enforcement section in our street addressing ordinance.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It goes to the Judicial Bureau.
Yeah,
I'm all for that.
okay, so the nub of it is if you don't comply with the 9/11 street addressing,
Mm-hmm.
you can be fined $800 a day for each day of a violation, as I read this.
Up to, yes.
Up to, yeah.
It's a serious issue, obviously,
Sure.
so it's a
Sure
public
is.
safety issue.
It's probably the most
Because
important
somebody-
public safety for police and fire and ambulance.
Correct.
Right.
Sorry.
I have a question on section 3, administration, number 2. Given our immediate discussion with the assessor, should it be the lister's office or the assessor?
I could go with either.
Or the 9/11 office?
Yeah, what, yeah, like I said,
I think that's better, what Stan
9/11
suggested.
office, I think would be,
it should be whoever the,
The E911 coordinator, that's what we call
Right.
them.
right,
Everybody gets cell phones.
Right.
that's their thing.
so we're gonna change that to the 9/11 coordinator, E9/11
Yes,
coordinator?
yes, I
Okay.
like that, that's a good change.
Good catch up.
The street naming to it, you have, which a telephone be reasonably located, include public phones. Cell phones are primary phones of everybody out there,
They are,
so we should probably scratch that.
I haven't seen a public phone.
yeah, I don't know where there are any, actually.
You know, and
So scratch just public phone?
I went down to my mailbox with my ruler, and my number, it's approved, no green,
Mm-hmm.
and that number is 3 inches high. And we're saying a minimum, or this thing is saying a minimum of 4. I'm not changing mine for,
No. And it's, the fire department's been selling them at that.
I bought
same-
it from the fire
So did,
department.
I did too, so I think that might be an error. Where
I
is,
hope so.
yeah. I will ask Bob to confirm that, but I believe it's 3. Because mine are also the same size as yours. They're the size of a street sign.
Yep.
They're just made with the reflective materials.
You guys are getting brave when the constable leaves.
No,
Yeah.
he's new, I think.
Yeah.
I'll ask Bob about that.
Over in 3 too, the administration, Article 3, it seems like we got an awful long chain of command. The E911 coordinator in cooperation with the assessor, town manager, and town zoning. Is it gonna take somebody forever to get a,
No, actually, this was quicker. We changed it last year because it used to say, I don't remember what it
we
said. I
gotta
know.
have the E911 coordinator, you know?
Works closely with the zoning.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always good to have an alternate in case the 9/11 coordinator
Well,
is.
but if he could be out, you could assign somebody to
Yeah.
cover the job.
Well, that's a tough one, actually. It took Bob Ware quite a bit of time to understand that well. You're still the grievance board if somebody doesn't like the decision.
We heard a grievance last year, didn't
You know, like where
Yeah.
you live from the town traveled highway, you can't see a number on your house.
No.
But you can't follow this document.
We have like a camp road sign that
I
has all
don't
the
care, you
numbers.
can't follow this document.
There's some non-compliant areas in town. We're trying to address the more important ones that are expanding so we don't create more non-compliance, but Bill's aware of that. It's one of the things he's kind of working on.
So you're gonna make that one change?
Gonna make the change, so from the beginning, I'm going to strike the words under section 2, number 1, including a public telephone. Section 3, going to, section 3, number 2, going to change the lister's office to
Right.
E9 coordinator.
Okay.
On page 2, section 4.3.
Yep.
The last, second to last sentence, going to, instead of the numbers, must easily legible figures not less than 3 inches.
Okay.
Striking, obviously, the 4 inches are mentioned. The homeowner is responsible for the numbers on their house or unit, and that continues to be true. And then the last page, as presented, section 6.
Okay.
So you
Those
just,
changes,
you have to have numbers on your house too?
You don't have to, you can have them.
Oh, because you have them at the street level, I understand, but,
You have, not always, that's what, sometimes you have a mailbox, sometimes you don't. And honestly, it's not a requirement that everyone has a house, they generally have house numbers, but we don't require them to have those reflective
Right.
numbers.
They need some numbers so they can be identified.
It would be helpful.
Okay, with those changes, I entertain a motion that we approve this ordinance.
so moved.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have one other item that's not here. I believe at last month's meeting, you thanked Sam Smith for his service.
Right.
So, we have a letter of appreciation I'd like to have the board sign later. It says, "Dear Sam, on behalf of the town of St. Albans, Vermont, it is an honor for the select board to recognize and applaud your years of public service to the town as a selectman and planning commissioner. The town and its citizens appreciate your commitment to the town of St. Albans, serving over 8 years, and we thank you for your time. On behalf of the town, please accept this letter as a token of our appreciation. Sincerely, all the select board members." So I'd like to have everybody sign that after the meeting. Good.
Will that be framed?
That's my question too.
Pardon me?
Will that be letter framed for
We
hanging?
haven't done
No, we can get that, done up if you don't mind. Okay. So after suitably framed. Okay, now you'll do your schedule. Next meeting is April 16th and Monday, May 7th. And we have a volunteer dinner Monday, April 9th. That's starting, 5:30 at the Legion?
Correct, yes. Mhm.
And we have a planning meeting next week on the 12th. What time are we meeting, 6:30?
Say 6, but
6,
I haven't warned it yet, so is everyone able to make it at 6?
yeah, 6.
What night?
Thursday the 12th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with that then, if there's nothing else.
Was there one here to add?
Okay,
I would like to ask the board to invite Dominic and Tim Smith to our next board meeting to discuss the water sewer contract.
What are we going to discuss?
yeah,
Well, we talked often about transparency and where we're at, and I thought this would be an opportunity to have Dom and the city explain what they're looking for to help us understand and the community to understand what are the issues. And we talked last meeting about being transparent, and I don't,
No, I think
I
that
don't
would be a
think
great
we-
opportunity.
I think we can be transparent without inviting them to the board. We have a copy of their contract that they submitted to us. We could, I'm not opposed to having them here, but I was the last one to have contact with Dominic pertaining to water and sewer, and he was very adamant that what we have for an offer is his last and final offer.
right?
So there is no discussion about changing the offer that was last submitted to us. The city is not interested in changing the offer whatsoever. But as far as transparency goes, I'm not opposed to that. I would like to be as transparent as possible. But I don't want to lure Dominic or the mayor in here, making them think that we are at all acceptable to the offer that they have in front of us right now. I'd like it perfectly clear that we're inviting them in to be transparent about it, but we are not in agreement in the particular offer that's in front of us at this time.
To me, that's what the public needs to hear,
Well, they just heard it.
Well, they should
but
hear.
not from the player, all the players.
Okay.
And I just think that if it were discussed openly, we might in fact get more people to be involved and to help maybe find a resolution.
But also at the last meeting, we talked about doing some sort of a opinion poll, taking an opinion poll with the public as to what they think about the offer that's in front of us right now. And I really would like to follow through on that. Here again, we talk about things and we don't really follow through on them. Now, I thought that the majority of us agreed that it might be a good idea to do some sort of a poll like that.
I thought it was on multiple issues of what the town wanted, and I thought the chair had an idea of doing a valid statistical study.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we
That will take time.
Of course, it takes time, yeah. Yeah,
And you also wanted to get the economist report back.
Yes.
Right.
We
So
want to see that.
that's what we were waiting for before we took the next step.
We should have that today.
I
Oh, you should have.
should have it. I have a rough draft. I gotta
Okay.
send some stuff back, but it should be out later this week. Yes.
Yeah, I don't, at this stage, I don't think we should give a platform to the city manager to, for want of a better term, sell his final offer. I have, if that were to happen, we could end up with a very messy rebuttal discussion, which may not be too pleasant. On the other hand, if we were going to talk about a philosophical approach as terms of long-term expectations, that may be worthwhile.
I agree that that would be my idea too.
Yeah.
That we really need to, the long-term expectations, let's just take one item that I know we all know about, and that is the forever clauses, the in perpetuity clause. Well, my feeling is none of us can figure out what this town's going to be like in 10 years. So therefore, how the hell, excuse me.
The kids are better.
How can we agree to something that will be beyond our control? We don't even know the consequences of that, what the future is on the contract itself.
You see, that's one of the stances that he's taking. They're standing on top of that. They want that, and they will not budge.
I understand, but let community see that.
You know, if he puts a position that shows that he and his colleagues in the city are absolutely intransigent,
right,
that makes it very simple. Goodbye, thank you very much.
Okay.
Take a walk.
And doing some, I mean, if you look back at the history of this issue, you can, every time it gets close to the negotiating table and we get close to making a deal, one side or the other does something maybe prematurely that screws it up. And I think it would be a very mature way of handling it to allow the new mayor and then the city, I would look at it as the city manager would be accompanying the mayor, not the city manager would be here and the mayor would just be with him. Give them the opportunity to present what their offer is, and then we could look at the last one that we were entertaining and show the public the differences.
We're not going to get involved in the public
No, I think we need to talk about what's best for the entire community and how we look forward.
We have their offer, and as he stated, and I'll say it again, his last and final offer. Okay, it's our duty to get if we do a deal, is to get the best deal possible for the town of St. Albans.
That's our obligation.
At what point do we go public with this, with their final offer? I mean, I think it's time, and why not let him do it?
Well, I don't, you know, everybody's saying, what point do we go public? I mean, I don't think we've been all that secretive about what it is right now. I mean, we talked about it.
Well, in a way, we
Throw
have.
a copy of the draft out. Say, here you go.
Well,
Read it.
you do that anytime. I don't care.
Hey,
Post it in the
Okay,
paper.
hold on,
Stop, because I'm getting cranked up.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I won't sign that conflict of interest because I had select board members calling the city manager that weren't even on the committee.
Okay.
So let's not say we haven't tried. Gary can tell you, we spent time with everybody that's involved, everybody. 12 hours one day, and we talked about everything.
I don't want to, Stan, I want to watch your blood
and
pressure.
nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So,
That's why we need the public.
Okay. So,
you need the public.
well,
This is what our offer is. Do you think it's a good deal? Yes? No?
That's right.
Okay, where was I?
Alright, so that means now we're really done, right?
Yes,
Are we going to, or are we not going to invite the town manager and the mayor?
you talk to him
I'm not.
on a philosophical basis and talk to us next week,
All right.
okay?
Yep.
And in next week's meeting, it's just gonna be a general planning meeting,
Correct.
yeah, with no executive session unless conditions warrant it.
Correct.
I don't wanna have one, I have no intention of having one,
I understand.
okay? But, good, okay? Thank you, Sam. That should calm you down. Right. Hey.
You may have one though, we have a report from a consultant that has not been made public
Okay,
yet,
well,
and
that's
you may
okay.
wanna
So it can
discuss
still be a
that.
draft. we
But it
look
could be
at.
brief.
All right, well, it's no problem.
Well, I don't know, St. Helen.
Okay, on that happy note, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Be happy to
And
second.
thank Judge Johnson for coming tonight. Thank you.
You were
Okay, all those
reappointed.
in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, good night. Thank you very much.